stopped to really think about what justice actually means.
It seems simple on the surface, doesn't it?
It does, but it's this bedrock concept, right? We talk about it constantly. But underneath that familiar word, that there's this incredibly intricate system, especially when you think about crime. What even is a crime? How do we prove it? And, maybe most importantly, how does the system that's supposed to deliver justice actually protect the most vulnerable people?
That's the core question, really.
So today we're doing a deep dive into those foundations of criminal justice. We'll unpack crime itself, criminal liability, and the absolutely critical role the courts play.
And how all that connects to human rights.
Exactly, especially for marginalized communities. Our mission really is to shine a light on the challenges they face and understand how this whole complex system is supposed to uphold fundamental rights.
Getting into the nuts and bolts.
Yeah, the what, the how, and definitely the why it matters.
It's fascinating because we all have an intuitive sense of crime, but the legal precision needed, it's pretty astonishing.
Oh, it really is.
It's not just about a bad act. It reflects the whole social contract and the mechanisms we build to, well, keep it intact.
You've nailed it. So before we get any further, we probably need to define what we're talking about. What is a crime, fundamentally? How is it different from just, any other wrong?
Okay, so at its core, a crime is an act, or sometimes a failure to act, an omission.
Right.
That violates public law, and it's punishable by the state.
Punishable by the state, that's key.
It is. And the big difference from a civil wrong, like a tort,
Okay.
is that a crime isn't just seen as harm against one person. It's considered an offense against society, against everyone.
Ah, okay, so it's like a breach of the collective peace or order.
Precisely. And that's why the state, representing society, takes on the job of prosecuting it.
That makes sense. It's not just a private argument. So if the state has to prove this breach, this crime, what do they actually need to show? It can't just be they did something wrong, surely. What are the core elements they have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt?
Yeah, and beyond a reasonable doubt is a very high standard, for good reason. To get a criminal conviction, you generally need two fundamental things, two pillars. The first is Actus Reus.
Actus Reus. Okay, the guilty act.
Exactly. That's the physical part, the external element. It's usually a voluntary physical act, or, importantly, it can be an omission.
An omission, like not doing something.
Yes, but only if there was a legal duty to act in the first place.
Okay, example.
Sure. The classic example is theft, the physical act of taking someone's property. That's the Actus Reus.
Got it.
For an omission. Think about a parent. They have a legal duty to provide food, shelter, care for their young child.
Right.
If they willfully fail to do that, and the child suffers harm as a result, that failure to act, that omission, is the Actus Reus for neglect or endangerment.
Okay, understood. So the physical part, doing something or failing to do something you're legally required to. But that's not always enough, is it? We often talk about intent, the guilty mind.
That's the second pillar, mens rea.
Mens rea, right.
Yes, for guilty mind. This is the mental part, the internal element. It's about the accused's state of mind, their level of blameworthiness when the Actus Reus happened.
And this is critical because
the degree of mens rea makes a huge difference. It determines how serious the crime is considered and what the potential punishment might be.
Right. It's not black and white. The law recognizes different shades of, guilt in the mind.
Exactly. It allows us to distinguish between, say, a genuine accident, carelessness, and a deliberate, calculated act.
Can you walk us through those degrees, maybe with an example?
Sure. Let's stick with that idea of lighting a fire, maybe near a dry forest.
Okay.
The highest level is intention. The person consciously wants the forest to burn down. They light the fire for that purpose. That's clear intent.
Right. The worst case scenario mentally.
Then there's knowledge. Maybe they don't want the forest destroyed, but they know it's incredibly dry. They know lighting a fire there is almost certain to cause it to spread, and they do it anyway. They're aware of the virtually certain outcome.
So they know what's going to happen, even if it's not their main goal.
Correct. Next down is recklessness. Here, they see the risk. They recognize lighting the fire could cause the forest to burn. They foresee that possibility.
If they do it anyway.
Yeah, they think, probably won't happen, or I'll be careful. And they consciously disregard that substantial and unjustifiable risk they foresaw.
Okay, taking a known gamble.
Pretty much. And finally, negligence. This is where they fail to act with the care a reasonable person would. They don't even realize the risk, but a reasonable person should have. Maybe they didn't clear the area properly, left it unattended.
So they weren't careful enough, didn't meet the standard expected.
Exactly. Same physical act lighting the fire, but vastly different mental states.
And vastly different legal consequences, I imagine. Someone intending arson versus someone being merely negligent. Huge difference.
Absolutely.
Ugh.
And crucially, for most crimes, the actus reus and the mens rea have to exist at the same time. They must coincide.
Ah, the principle of concurrence.
That's the one. Your guilty mind has to be present when you commit the guilty act. You can't decide later that you wish you'd had bad intentions when you did something accidentally.
That seems fair. It sets a high bar. But are there exceptions? Times when you don't need the guilty mind?
Yes, there are. We call them strict liability offenses.
Strict liability, like...
Often in regulatory areas. Think of speeding tickets, some environmental regulations, selling alcohol to minors perhaps. For these specific offenses, the prosecution usually just needs to prove the act occurred. The actus reus.
So it doesn't matter if you meant to speed or if you knew the person was underage?
Generally, no. The act itself is enough for liability. But these are specific exceptions, usually aimed at protecting public health or safety, encouraging people to be extremely careful in those areas.
Got it. Okay, so we have the crime defined, the elements needed. Now, who decides if all this has been proven? This brings us to the courts, right? The judiciary. Our sources call them the guardians of justice.
Indispensable is the word. They really are the central mechanism. Without impartial courts, the whole system falls apart.
And their job is more than just handing down verdicts, isn't it?
Oh, much more. First and foremost, yes, their primary function is adjudicating cases. They hear the evidence from both sides, prosecution and defense. They evaluate the arguments, and then they determine guilt or innocence.
Based on that beyond a reasonable doubt standard.
Always. And built into that is the cornerstone principle, the presumption of innocence. You're innocent until the state proves otherwise. The burden is entirely on them.
Such a fundamental protection. What else do the courts do that's vital for, say, individual rights?
Oh, that's their second massive role. They are the guardians of fundamental human rights.
How so?
They ensure that everyone involved in the system, especially state actors like the police, follows the law. They protect rights, like the right to a fair trial, access to a lawyer, freedom from arbitrary arrest, freedom from torture.
So they act as a check on state power.
Absolutely. They interpret the laws, including the Constitution, to ensure individual liberties are protected. And many landmark rights we rely on weren't just given, they were established through courageous judicial decisions over time. Courts really shape the landscape of our rights.
Wow. Okay, so adjudication, protecting rights. What about after a conviction?
Then comes sentencing and punishment. The court decides the appropriate sentence. And this is complex. They have to balance different goals.
Like what?
There's retribution punishment for the wrong done, deterrence, try and prevent the offender and others from committing similar crimes, rehabilitation, helping the offender change, and protecting society overall.
That's a difficult balancing act.
It really is.
Yep.
And critically, even when imposing punishment, the sentence must be proportionate to the crime, and it must respect the offender's basic human rights. You don't lose all your rights just because you're convicted.
That's an important point. Even in punishment, dignity matters. Is there one more core function?
Yes, the interpretation of law. Laws aren't always crystal clear. Courts constantly interpret criminal statutes, constitutional clauses. They apply old laws to new situations, like cybercrime.
So they keep the law relevant.
Exactly. And they ensure laws align with evolving standards of human rights and justice. Law has to adapt.
Okay, this gives us a solid picture of the what and how. Now let's connect it to the why it matters part. Criminal justice isn't just abstract theory, it's a tool, right? A tool to tackle real-world human rights issues, especially for vulnerable groups.
Precisely. It's the mechanism society uses to respond to serious harms. It allows for investigation, prosecution, punishment. It provides a path to justice for victims and hopefully deters future violations. This is where the law hits the ground.
And one area where this is tragically necessary is dealing with police misconduct or atrocities.
Yes, this is a grave concern. We're talking about abuses like excessive force, custodial torture, sometimes even extrajudicial killings, illegal detentions. These are direct attacks on the right to life, dignity, freedom from torture, fundamental rights.
So how does the criminal justice system respond?
It's supposed to hold officers accountable, not just through internal police discipline, but through criminal prosecution, charging them with assault, wrongful confinement, even murder, just like any citizen.
The law applies equally.
That's the principle. Victims also have the right to sue for compensation, and the courts enforce procedural safeguards, like the rule that an arrested person must be brought before a magistrate within 24 hours.
Why is that 24-hour rule so important?
It's a crucial check. It prevents secret, prolonged detentions where abuses are more likely to happen. It gets the judiciary involved quickly to oversee the detention. It's a vital safeguard against arbitrary power.
Okay, so accountability and procedural checks. Another huge area is violence against women and children.
Sadly, yes. They face disproportionate levels of sexual assault, domestic violence, trafficking. The criminal justice system is vital here, often through specific laws designed for these issues.
Like specialized legislation.
Exactly. Think of laws specifically addressing domestic violence, or laws like the POCSO Act, Protection of Children from Sexual Offenses. These provide clearer paths for reporting, investigation, and prosecution tailored to the nature of these crimes.
So general assault laws might not be enough.
Often not. These specialized laws might have enhanced penalties, different rules of evidence, and crucially, they often mandate a more victim-centric approach during the trial process, focusing on the victim's safety and privacy.
And the goal is also deterrence, presumably.
Yes, strong enforcement and effective prosecution send a message that these crimes are taken seriously and won't be tolerated.
Then there's the challenge of communal and caste-based violence driven by prejudice. How does the system address that?
This cuts right to the heart of equality and security. It's about violence fueled by hatred based on religion or caste. The justice system uses specific laws here, too.
For example?
Laws like the Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes, Prevention of Atrocities Act, are designed specifically to protect these communities. Plus, general penal code provisions against hate speech or promoting enmity between groups are also used.
So targeting the acts and sometimes the speech that incites them.
Yes, it's about holding individuals and groups accountable for inciting or committing violence based on these identities. Sometimes special courts or fast-track courts are set up to handle these cases more quickly, ensuring justice isn't delayed. It's about protecting the diverse fabric of society.
Finally, let's touch on terrorism and insurgency. This seems incredibly complex, balancing security and rights.
It's perhaps the most difficult balance. Terrorism directly threatens national security and the human rights of everyone. So the criminal justice response often involves special counterterrorism laws.
What makes them special?
They might allow for speedier trials, have stricter rules for granting bail, or give investigators broader powers. They're designed to counter a unique kind of threat.
But doesn't that create a risk of abuse, more power for the state?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's where the judiciary's role as guardian is paramount. Courts have to be incredibly vigilant to prevent these special powers from being misused.
How?
By scrutinizing arrests, ensuring detentions aren't arbitrary or unduly prolonged, rejecting evidence obtained through torture, and generally making sure that even in the fight against terrorism, the fundamental rules of law and fairness are upheld. It's a constant tightrope walk.
Wow. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground. From the basic building blocks of crime, Actus Reus, mens rea through the court's many roles, to how the system grapples with protecting vulnerable groups. It really is a complex, continuous balancing act, isn't it?
It truly is. And it's never static. The law, the courts, they have to keep adapting to new realities, new challenges.
Which leads perfectly into a final thought, something for you, our listeners, to maybe chew on. Given how fast society and technology are changing, think about AI, deepfakes, complex cybercrime.
Yeah, entirely new territories.
How might our core ideas of the guilty act, the actus reus, and the guilty mind, the mens rea, need to evolve? How do we apply these concepts to crimes that happen entirely online or committed by algorithms, maybe? And crucially, how do we make sure that as crime changes, our ways of protecting the most vulnerable keep pace?
That's the challenge for the future, isn't it?
It really is. It challenges us all to keep thinking, questioning, and striving for a system that delivers justice truly for everyone now and tomorrow.